You are listening to the DizNeeds podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the DizNeeds podcast. My name is Danny Osmond, and I'm your host for the podcast dedicated to helping you have the best time possible when traveling with special needs to Disney parks, resorts, and on the Disney Cruise Line. I'm so excited to be with you today. When Adam Gorlitsky, a 19-year-old college student, awoke from a horrific car accident after falling asleep at the wheel, he was told he would never walk again. The seasoned athlete who was once celebrated for running a mile in under 5 minutes was completely devastated by the news. The thought of not walking again was crushing and a reality he had a difficult time accepting. As the years passed, Adam set his sights on being an advocate for people with disabilities, focused on adapting to his new reality and how he could move forward in a positive way. 10 years after his accident, Adam's life dramatically changed again. He was chosen as a candidate for a new exoskeleton technology, a machine that would allow him to stand and walk again for the first time in a decade. The moment he stood, Adam knew his next mission. He was determined to help change others' lives as well. His continued commitment to inspire others to action serves as the cornerstone of his Re-enabled Race Tour. In April of 2016, with 40,000 runners cheering him on, Adam became the first paralyzed man to complete the 10K Cooper River Bridge Run, beginning his Re-enabled Race Tour towards changing the lives of others and raising $1 million for people with disabilities around the world. He races across the country, educating others on this technology that has changed his life and encouraging others to demand it become a machine covered by insurance. Adam continues to fight for his right to walk one step at a time. He is passionate about creating a safe environment for people living with a disability and their families around the world, and wants to give others the courage to move forward in a positive and productive way. So now, please welcome Adam Gorlitsky. So I appreciate you coming on and doing this. I've got Adam Gorlitsky here. I heard about Adam from Andrew Prince, who many of you heard, I believe it was episode 3. But Andrew was like, hey, I know this cool guy, Adam, who uses this robotic exoskeleton and competed in the Dopey Challenge last year at Marathon Weekend, and you should totally have him on the show. And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds really cool. So I reached out to Adam, and Adam is here, and Adam's going to tell us all about what he's doing with his organization, I Got Legs. And so Adam, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. It's good being here.
So Adam, before we start talking about all your awesome technology and your awesome mission and your organization and the great things you're doing. So I want to hear more about your story and what your life was like before your accident. And then I really want to share with people a lot about after that and your recovery process and everything. Who was Adam before your accident when you were 19, was it?
Yeah, I was 19 years old when I became a T9 paraplegic from a car accident. So what that means is I have a spinal cord injury, and I'm paralyzed from the waist down, so belly button down. So for the past 12 years almost, I've been paralyzed from the waist down. But before my accident, I was kind of like every other kid. I was played sports all throughout high school and childhood. Basketball was my life. And then high school, I really got into track and cross country. So just, your average everyday kid, with big dreams and then you graduated high school, here in Charleston, South Carolina. And, it was a sophomore in college when I got into my car accident. So I was just your average college kid, really, before my accident, and then once I got into my car accident, that's, in a weird way, ironically, that's kind of when I kind of discovered who I really was, I guess, going through that adversity, you kind of lose touch with who you are for a second, but through that adversity, you really start digging deep and, and here we are 12 years later.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, you were a sophomore in college. Like obvious questions come to mind. Did you finish school? How long did it take you physically to recover to a point where you were out of the hospital? Tell us a little bit about that recovery process and the therapy that goes into recovering from that type of injury.
Yeah, no, totally. So I think, so one, I guess I'll describe briefly my car accident. It was December 30th, 2005. I was going into my spring semester of my sophomore year of college. So on December 30th, the morning of December 30th, 2005, I got up very early in the morning, probably like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I drove from Charleston to Columbia to move new furniture into my new apartment with, there's 3 college buddies. So I got up there, moved all my stuff in. That night, I decided to drive back. My younger brother's birthday is on December 31st. So, and then, New Year's Eve, I wanted to be back in Charleston for that. So I drove back. It was right around 8:30 at night, probably about 30 minutes away from being back home. And I just fell asleep at the wheel for a few seconds while driving. Wasn't wearing my seatbelt, and as a result, I was in a car accident by myself. No one else got hurt but me. So I got in my car accident. Knew I was paralyzed or couldn't move my legs from the second that I got into my car accident. It was airlifted to the nearest hospital here in Charleston. Spent about 3 weeks in intensive care at that hospital in Charleston, and then was airlifted to the Shepherd Center in Atlanta. It's a spinal cord injury and brain center. And I did about 8 or 9 weeks of rehab there. And it was just learning how to live life without legs. It really is kind of a different body. So the initial rehab was probably 9 weeks or 9 weeks, or really 12 weeks if you count the intensive care. And then, I obviously took that spring semester off from college. I went to the University of South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I went back to school the following fall semester. I kind of eased back into it, was only taking 3 classes, for that first semester back. It took me 3.5 years to graduate, or 4 years actually, 3.5 to 4 years to graduate college after that. But it's a slow process. I tell people that, when you go through something that catastrophic, you have big dreams, big goals but just to kind of, have those big goals, but do the little things and, take pride in doing those small things. And you really do kind of, when you become, permanently disabled, you start finding little achievements that really add up to a bigger picture. So,
and I would imagine that it's different for everyone emotionally, but what was that emotional journey like for you? I mean, now you're the founder of this organization and you're doing great things for a lot of people. What was the emotional journey like being a 19-year-old? I was a kid at 19 years old. I would call myself a kid. I don't know how I would have handled it. I know how at 28 years old, having a child with a disability was an emotional shock and a change. But what was that journey like for you during that recovery process over the last, decade, really?
Yeah, totally. I think, what happens when you become disabled, especially permanently, but also temporarily, if you break your leg, let's say, you kind of, you become mindful of things that you weren't once mindful of. When you're 19 years old and you're in college and you're able-bodied and, you can, run upstairs and, you can do anything, from physically, right? And that's, and then when you lose that ability to climb stairs or, pick somebody up, like a girlfriend, you hug a girlfriend, you pick her up, or whatever it is, you're now forced to become mindful of what you can't do anymore and your limitations. And I think at first, especially when you're so young, becoming mindful of that in a very catastrophic way, a car accident. It definitely can. I can see. I mean, of course, I don't want to say depression, but that it's a lot of emotions to kind of take on. And I think looking back on it, I think it's just those emotions were not necessarily me being paralyzed, but I think it was all the like I just become more mindful of things I can't do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was, because I do feel like I was fortunate. When I was in the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, I mean, there was one 19-year-old kid that was paralyzed from his neck down, and I just remember seeing. I was there for 9 weeks. I only saw him twice, and I just remember him just bawling his eyes out. And he had a paintbrush in his mouth, painting a picture. And he was bawling his eyes out still. And I just remember thinking like, wow, it could have been a lot worse. Mm-hmm. So, once you start, seeing how fortunate you really are, I think then you kind of start slowly digging out of whatever, dark place, depression that you are in. But it definitely takes you hitting those rock bottom moments though. But I think ultimately, looking back on it, and, it does make you stronger to a certain extent, but I don't wish that upon anybody else. There's a lot of probably healthier ways to become more mindful of things. Yeah,
I can imagine. Before we get to today and the organization you started and this cool technology that you're gonna share, what was the last decade like? What have you done? What's your day job, if you will? If I Got Legs is what you really are passionate about, what's your day job?
I Got Legs now. It's become my day job. I mean, that took about 2 years to get it to that point. No, but before this, so I was 19, so I finished college with a retail business degree. My family has a small business, so I just started kind of, once I graduated college, I didn't really know what I want. I mean, I actually fell in love with filmmaking while I was in college after my car accident. That's a very tough field to really get into, especially if you are permanently disabled. It's a little bit tougher. So I started working, for my family's business, just doing everything, just getting hands-on experience doing a company, just from customer service to website management to everything. So then I did that for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And then I went back to school for film production here in Charleston. And I fell in love with the filmmaking process. So I was then started doing part-time, music videos, producing and directing, mostly producing music videos, short films, some local, silly local commercials and stuff like that. And then I Got Legs happened 2 years ago. Now the organization's about 14 months old right now. But I really started 2 years ago. I'm a member of the Roper Hospital, the Roper St. Francis Spinal Cord Injury Center here in Charleston. And once a year, I go down for my annual checkup. So 2 years ago, I went down for my annual checkup, and they said, "Hey, we have this robotic exoskeleton here that you can try out. Not many people are really using it. Would you like to try it out? We think you'd be a great candidate, especially since you ran cross country, did track, and played basketball. You're very active." I said, "Sure, why not?" And then about a month later, I went down there again and stood up for the first time. And if you go to my Instagram page, I believe that's August 15th, 2015 is when I stood up in the exoskeleton for the very first time. I kind of had that aha moment that you kind of hear about. I was 29 years old at the time, and it's like I found my purpose. I knew that I could translate all my passions, being an athlete, the filmmaking, the storytelling element, and then I can channel that into a nonprofit organization. So I started fundraising for my own exoskeleton. Launched a GoFundMe campaign, started selling I Got Legs t-shirts. And then January of 2016 is when we officially created the organization. And then my very first race was the Cooper River Bridge Run last year, which is April 2nd, 2016. It's a 10K. It's 6.2 miles. Took almost 7 hours and exactly this many steps. Yeah. 17,932.
Cool.
So that's that's kind of a long-winded answer.
Yeah. So let's talk about the technology first. Now, is this one company that makes this exoskeleton technology, or is it an industry that's out there? And how does it work? And how long did it take for you to learn to move the way I've seen you move in those videos?
Yeah. So I guess so. There's a few manufacturers. The manufacturer that makes mine is called Rewalk. There's about two or three other manufacturers that have this exoskeleton technology. I've yet to try out those other two, or those other two or three. So I don't know. Just at like face value, seeing YouTube videos, I think mine's like the best. It's the the most robust. It's the best walking gait. But those other ones have other benefits too. But anyway, so yeah, the company's called Rewalk. It's a robotic exoskeleton is the technical classification. And how I describe it like the lower half of a Terminator suit, because it really kind of is. So I roll up next to it. Picture this Terminator suit sitting down in a chair. Mm-hmm. I roll up next to it. I transfer in. I strap in, and then I wear a watch on my right hand wrist. That's like the brain of this exoskeleton Terminator suit. So when I strap in, I hit a button, puts into stand mode, stands me up. I then I hit a button on the watch, puts into walk mode. I have 2 arm crutches. Mm-hmm. So I tap forward with each arm crutch, and then I move my hips and abs forward. And with that movement, there's a sensor in each hip of the exoskeleton that picks up the movement in my abs and hips, which then kicks in a motor within the exoskeleton itself. Cool. So my abs and hips initiate the movement, and then the exoskeleton finishes, actually walks for me. So what happens is that after a very long race or like a long walk, it's this crazy abdominal workout, and then the training process on it, it's pretty extensive. Look, at the time when I first stood up, it had been 10 years since I really, since I walked, or even stood up. So the first 4 sessions were just me learning how to transfer into it, strap in, and just really learn how to balance in it. I didn't even take my first steps until probably 2 weeks. 2 weeks when 4 training sessions, and then it probably took a good 6 months where I was comfortable enough to even take 6 to 10 steps, like consecutive steps, without messing up. It is a pretty extensive learning process. Now, some people can start walking within like 2 weeks. It's, for me personally, though, it took quite some time. But now I'm like a walking pro.
That's something I think a lot of people don't think about is, I didn't really think about it even with my daughter until orthopedic doctors started to say, well, the body changes if it's not standing up, if it's not feeling gravity or whatever, especially with like when kids are developing. But I can even imagine like with you, how your muscles have changed and all that type of stuff over 10 years.
Yeah. And, it's, so with standing and walking, in the exoskeleton, obviously it's great for cardiovascular. Bone density is a big thing because of the vibration that comes up back through your foot, when you walk. Circulation is obviously improved. Skin breakdowns. I'm not, I don't have too many of those, but it helps out with that. And and also from added muscle mass. My core strength is like the big thing for me. And then also digestively, it's great for digestion, and all of that. But one of the big things, and this is really what our whole organization is kind of based off of. Obviously there's great physical benefits of this exoskeleton, but really for me, it's the emotional, psychological benefits that I see translate over to every aspect of my life. Mm-hmm. And so I tell people that when I'm in in my Rewalk robotic exoskeleton, I don't feel disabled anymore, but I don't feel able-bodied. I feel what I call re-enabled.
Yeah.
And I really do feel that way because one, I have a spinal cord injury. I'm paralyzed from my waist down. So one, I can't feel my legs. So when I'm standing and walking, I'm technically more independent when I'm sitting in my wheelchair. I'm 4'9" though when I'm sitting.
Yeah. When
I'm standing and walking, I'm 6'1". So I do feel a little bit different. I mean, it's hard to. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's because I'm a guy. I'm 31-year-old guy. Maybe, being tall. I think us as guys, we like being tall.
Yeah.
But I think girls feel the same way too. But I do feel differently. And I find myself when I get, especially after a long race, I can't wait to get back in my chair after a long race. And that's an amazing feeling. I don't know. I find myself when I'm in my exoskeleton more, it affects so many other aspects of my life. I don't know. I'm just more comfortable with maybe who I am afterward, but I just feel more confident in every aspect of my life. And I think in large part because I'm able to stand up, whenever I want. So that re-enabled feeling is kind of the at the core of what I Got Legs is. And that message just, it's just the message of what it means to be empowered, and that's really what this exoskeleton does.
So it sounds like the mission of your organization, I Got Legs, is helping people get this experience of being re-enabled. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organization's doing to further that cause and how things have been going so far? You said you started 2 years ago. You're really a year officially into the organization. How are things going, and what are you guys doing, and what do you want to do in the future?
Yeah. So I tell people, if you go to the website, our cause for I Got Legs is what it means to be disabled versus able-bodied. And there's many statistics that back that up, from education to income to obviously, with obesity, first-time marriage rates, divorce rates. It's quite staggering between able-bodied and being disabled, those numbers. Mm-hmm. So our mission is to re-enable members of the disabled community in the towns and cities they live in. And then our goal is to bridge the gap between what it means to be disabled versus able-bodied. So the first year, I'm now on my 1 million steps re-enabled race tour. And where I'm walking 1 million steps in road races throughout the country wearing this robotic exoskeleton. So with that said, there's really, right now, there's, the main focus right now is building our digital community first. So, it sounds crazy through Instagram, Facebook, because I've done all these races, in particular Disney. After that Walt Disney race this past January, I had literally had the most amount of people reach out to me wanting to know, who are just like me, wanting to know more about this exoskeleton. So it's the very first step, in this process is, build, how do we build this community properly? So we're, there's, through social media, how do we channel that through social media? So we have a whole strategy behind that. And then tangibly, we are now rolling out our base programs for I Got Legs. It's our re-enabled race program and our step tour program. And all the re-enabled race program is, essentially, with that re-enabled race program, for this first year of me walking these races, I walked 2/3 the speed of your average able-bodied walker. And so because of that, I had to start scaled in, at all these races. So with the Walt Disney World Marathon, to walk the entire marathon would take me 5 days.
Yeah.
But so if I start at mile 20 though, and do the final 6.2 miles of it, that's like I get to start at the same time as everybody else. And I get to finish with like all the slower runners.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 7 hours. So for the first year, I was bringing my unofficial scaled starting line to these races. So I'm like, man, like, what if I just brought my official starting line? And so how do we make that official? Well, yeah, we have so this year I'm putting in my official scaled re-enabled race starting line, with signage and everything. Mm-hmm. But we're also putting it into race registration categories, where other people like me who are permanently disabled, and it can be anybody. If you're just had a triple bypass surgery and you're trying to rediscover your athleticism, mm-hmm. you can sign up for the re-enabled athlete course, for that particular race. And then, so we're now reaching out to races. We're putting in the official re-enabled race scaled starting line and the race registration category. It's very similar to what golf courses do with the different sets of tee boxes for the strength and skill levels. So with that said, we're starting here in Charleston. It's a big vision. So it's got many different layers to it. So we're now we're starting here in Charleston with that program. And we've now done this with 3 races nationally, but we're, 1 here in Charleston. But we're going to reach out to 5 races within Charleston, where we put in the re-enabled race starting line, the race registration category, and we're also going to be a charity partner with those races. And then we're going to package those races together, partner with the exoskeleton training center that offers this technology, mm-hmm. and that's going to be our Charleston re-enabled racing circuit. Mm. So the goal is, because what I'm seeing is that not many, the goal is to get people down to the rehab center using these exoskeletons. I know at face value, it would, you'd think that like there's millions of people who are paralyzed that want to go down to the rehab center and try it out. That's not the case. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And what I'm seeing is that when I put these re-enabled races in, all of a sudden it attracts the community to it. For-profit companies, other nonprofits, government even as well, officials down to this race. And which then translates to, I'm seeing it translates to people going down to the rehab center to try it out. So the insurance companies will pay for the training sessions associated with this exoskeleton and most other leg brace technology, but they won't cover the cost of it. So our re-enabled race program is to get more people down to the rehab center using these exoskeletons. Now with our Step Tour program, which ties into the re-enabled race program. Let's say you're training with an exoskeleton at Roper Hospital Rehab or any other training center throughout the country, exoskeleton training center, and you love it, and you go, look, I want to fundraise. I want to have my own exoskeleton, but my insurance won't cover it. Mm-hmm. Well, I Got Legs. You can reach out to us, and we will create you a step tour that takes place within your re-enabled racing circuit in your hometown. And for every step you take, I Got Legs will pledge to give $1 per step that goes toward your exoskeleton. Now, what this does, it allows the person to earn their legs back on their own. Mm-hmm. What I'm seeing is it's kind of cool. Like I get more people that want to earn it back the way I did. I guess it's perceived that I did all this on my own, which I large part I did, but they want to get their exoskeleton back in like the same way I did, mm-hmm. through steps. And that's really cool to see. So now it's just developing the platforms, or the programs within I Got Legs that enables that. And then, so we're focusing now on bringing those programs, to the races. We're going to be creating our own races as well. On December 30th, we'll have our very first, I Got Legs, race. And then it's, building that digital community. So it's a big, and then finding partners, and it's great with the races. It attracts sponsors and partners. It takes a lot of infrastructure to really make all this stuff happen. Like, which is, but so it takes a real community is kind of what I'm saying. And the programs are designed to bring in the entire community.
Well, I love that. I love both those ideas because it sounds like, right, it brings people together. It shows people what's going on. It puts them in action versus just asking for money. It shows that people are really invested in in what they want to do and in getting exoskeletons of their own, like you were saying, on their own.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but also, when we create a step tour, the cool thing about when you create a step tour is that it gives, because look, the exoskeletons are about, right now they're about 85, I think even maybe $95,000. Now look, that's a lot of steps to, if it's just $1 per step that we're giving that person per step, that's a lot of steps. So what it does though, it allows that person and to leverage the I Got Legs brand, but also our 501c3 status to create fundraising events with their friends and family, local communities. So that person might not have to take, really any steps on their step tour. But the fact that they create the step tour is huge, because maybe that person goes, look, after 1,000 steps, they go, man, this is, I don't know if I want to take all the steps. Well, now we can help them create fundraising events, which then bring in local, their local community, businesses and partners as well. And it's really about building this community out properly. And then from there, it's, we can make step tours, in honor of making the towns and cities more accessible, where these people live. It's a big vision, and we're slowly achieving, really starting to now execute on that vision. And that's exciting to see.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the t-shirts too. I love all the celebrity photos on the site wearing your t-shirts, and
I will have to send you a t-shirt, man. So
totally. It's a great idea, and we'll make sure we'll put all the links in the show notes so that people and I'll make sure I'm going to promote the heck out of this one. I think just the coolness factor of the technology fascinates a lot of people. Just like it was fascinating to me, and I'm in the world of disability and special needs, but I can imagine that people outside of it just see it, and they're, like you're saying, they're thinking Terminator, or they're thinking Steve Austin or whatever. But it's just really cool what it's able to do. So this is a Disney centric podcast, so I have to ask at least one Disney question. So you participated in the Dopey Challenge. So immediately I think you're crazy, because I don't know that I could ever even do that able-bodied. You spent some time at Disney, and I want to hear, outside of the race itself and outside of all the activities that you were doing related to the race, what was your experience like at Disney, going for the first time as someone disabled and with mobility issues? Tell us about the experience. Tell us maybe just a little bit about what you did at the park besides, I don't know, probably recover from the races like most people do.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, so I guess, when I first went, I was 17, so I was able-bodied. Obviously I think as a 17-year-old, you just want to ride every single ride possible. So that's kind of what I did, just, took it to the extreme. I got exhausted just like doing that after one or 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
But then going back as, being disabled, now I went back, to walk the Dopey Challenge. So I spent most of my time, literally, just walking those 4 races, which one got canceled due to lightning, the half marathon. So I spent, I didn't really go on many rides. I would love to go back and go on some rides. No, but being disabled though was, to me it was fine. I mean, everything was pretty accessible. I wasn't able to go on any rides, so I can't speak on that. But everybody was real nice, man. They're real, super accommodating. It was a blast. it's really cool with the Walt Disney World Marathon, or, with the Dopey Challenge and the races. The racing culture is filled with super passionate people, like really whoever does a lot of them, and gets to know the people that do the races. You can tell. I mean, it's an incredible kind of culture, subculture, right, of passionate people. But then combine that with the Disney, the passion of the Disney crowd, it makes for a really amazing experience. I mean, it was really cool. You have Mickey Mouse and, when, all the, Snow White who are actually on the race course and, taking pictures with everybody. So it's like when you combine those two worlds into one, it's a pretty special, you really feel it, like while you're there racing, the energy and the excitement of Disney and, racing and all that. It's a really interesting, cool experience.
Yeah. I've thought about doing the races solely for that reason, that excitement, just because it sounds amazing. And as an aside, actually, while we were just talking, Andrew, actually, he didn't know we were doing this interview, but he just sent me a message that's a video of, they're installing Toy Story Land at Disney Hollywood Studios. And he sent me a video of the Slinky Dog roller coaster that they're having there. Actually has a wheelchair accessible vehicle, which is something that he and I talk a lot about, is like what rides he can get on and what rides he can't, and what he has to transfer for. So yeah, that's one thing my family loves about the Disney parks, is that they really are trying to make things accessible as much as possible to everyone, no matter what issue they might have or what ability or disability.
I was only, I wasn't able to ride any of the rides, but next time I go back, we'll have to, me, you, and Andrew, and that'll be fun, man.
This was really interesting. I was so excited to hear about this technology and hear about it from your point of view, someone who's actually using it and sharing it with the world. So, thank you for doing this and being so straightforward and honest and just down to earth about your experiences, both with your recovery and going through this and what you're trying to do now with I Got Legs. What is the best way for people that hear this to not only support your mission? How can people contact you? How can they find out more information?
Well, one, through the website, igotlegs.org. You can email from there. You can donate, buy shirt. You can create your own fundraiser event, but also we're on Instagram too. Instagram, I kind of, I treat my Instagram maybe a little bit, or social media in general, a little bit differently than maybe most. It's not, it's one part promotion, I guess, but it's really, I want to show people the journey of all the stuff that kind of goes on behind the scenes of creating I Got Legs, not only my 1 Million Steps tour, but how it then translates over to the programs and creating the organization. So I'm really big into like 1 minute Instagram documentaries on my Instagram page. So really, honestly, just, going to the website, reaching out to us from there, and really just kind of following us on social media, on Instagram, and sharing videos, reposting them, liking them. That's those two. I think that's like probably the best way.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll put all those links in the show notes. So Adam, thanks again for doing this, man. This has been great.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.